Karen from Countyfairgrounds USA, countyfairgrounds.net. Welcome to today's podcast.
Do I have the one and the only, the original comedy stuntman, Matt Baker?
Yeah, you do, yes.
Okay, so Mr. Matt, you're a comedian and you're a stuntman. I've never seen those two things together before. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about who you are?
Yes, I do a comedy stunt. I call it a comedy stunt show. It's sort of resembles a stand-up comedian who does unusual skills, and I demonstrate a variety of unusual skills, and I sort of interweave it with original comedy.
Okay. Yeah, I always have an interest when I talk to entertainers as to how you got started. I mean, most people, they go to school, they don't come out a comedian and a stuntman. Yeah.
Well, I think you don't go to school to become a comedian and stuntman.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in a small town in Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, and I got exposed pretty early to, I learned the sport of hacky-sac, and I sort of did that for a while and toured Europe playing hacky-sac professionally. I was sponsored by Snickers candy bars. And so I learned to sort of do some other circus skills like balancing and juggling and Chinese yo-yo. And I just said when I was in Europe, I just said I never want to do anything other than get paid to do something I love and entertain people. And so that's where I got the bug.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. I don't know what hacky-sac is. Please explain.
Hacky-sack is a game that you keep like a little bag filled with beans in the air, only using your feet. It was popular in like the late 80s, early 90s. It's not popular anymore at all. Actually,
okay.
You're not alone. Most people don't know what it is anymore, but I still perform it in my show. But as you can see, I needed to learn other skills to make a career because there's no way that people would be entertained enough by me keeping a bag in the air with just my feet.
Okay, somewhere along the line as you were having fun with your feet, okay, you must have done a first performance for like an audience. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, my family is, I grew up a Boy Scout, and so, we'd always perform skits at, camp outs and stuff, and so I wasn't foreign to being in front of a crowd doing silly things. I would do talent shows, do little skits and lip singing and dancing. But then when I went to Europe, I had to do like school programs where I was demonstrating hacky-sack to kids. And I would say my first tour was in Ireland, and I was doing 15-minute shows and just demonstrating what you can do and the basics to kicking a hacky-sack and cool tricks that you can do if you practice. And then I moved to Seattle and started doing street performances. I remember a lot of really painful street shows because I didn't know what I was doing. And so it took me a while to sort of put together stuff that would keep an audience and actually entertain them and then also make me money. So it took me about a year to sort of piece all that together.
Okay. I followed you along with all of that, except how you get to go to Ireland to do this. You didn't explain that real well.
Well, I got sponsored by Snickers candy bars when I was 17 years old, and they paid me money to come over to Europe. I went to Ireland and the Czech Republic, and they just paid me and a couple other people to tour around and do hacky-sack demonstrations at schools and shopping malls and sort of hawk their product. I wore Snickers shirts. I had a Snickers car. My hacky-sack said Snickers on it. And so I would just do all of these cool, demonstrations at various functions, corporate events and stuff. And I was a 17-year-old kid traveling around Europe doing what I love. So it was a dream come true. And so I wanted to keep that dream going, and so I just decided to continue doing weird and unusual skills as a career.
I've interviewed a lot of entertainers. A lot of the entertainers tell me, learning to be a comedian isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah, I think it is one of the hardest things to do. I think it takes a lot of practice, but I also think there is some natural ability. You know, I'm the youngest kid of 4, and I would always use humor to get attention in my family. So I had a built-in mechanism. I had built-in sarcasm that helped inform the comedy that I perform in my show. But it took time to sort of hone in on, what an audience likes, how to properly word jokes, how to not waste words. And that took a lot of time and a lot of practice. And I watched a lot of comedians. I went to a lot of open mics. I read a lot of books. And I wrote quite a bit. And then essentially it's just trial and error. You go out there and you say a joke that you think is funny, and you hope that the audience agrees with you. And sometimes they do. A lot of times they don't. And you either you have to be willing to move on from it or rewrite it. And it's not like performing a trick where it's like you're not as vulnerable with the trick. It's like, here, I get to show you this cool skill. But whereas a joke, there needs to be a specific response, which is laughter. And if there is not that, it is considered a failure. So yeah, it is tough, and it takes a lot of time and practice. I say every day I'm still working on getting better and still working on, being a better comedian.
Okay, so back up a little bit. You're 17. What did your parents think of this?
They were not fond of this decision.
I bet not.
No, I was met with a lot of friction, but to their credit, they were open-minded, and because it required me to leave school. I left school when before my senior year of high school.
Oh.
And my sort of life growing up was a little tumultuous with my family, and we had a bunch of bumps and bruises and potholes in our road to where we are today. But that was a big step for them to say, hey, he loves doing this. This is a cool opportunity. And they trusted that I was making, a good decision for my life. And that I love them to death because of that. And I know how difficult that was. But yeah, most parents would not have done that.
No. I guess you're a new father. So what are you going to do when your kid does this?
I'm going to be in full support. I'm already trying to, tell her jokes, and we're already trying to. She's only 6 weeks today, so she's making me laugh a lot. So that's a good sign. But yeah, I'm going to try and be in full support of whatever she wants. If she's passionate about something and she gets an opportunity to go and do something that might conflict with her schooling, I think real world experience is much more valuable than just reading textbooks.
Okay, Matt. So, what's the biggest first show that you did that you remember?
The biggest first show?
Yeah,
or my biggest show ever.
Well, no. What's the first consequential show that you did?
That's a great question. I did a show. I used to be in a duo with another performer named Alex Zerbe, and we called ourselves the Brothers from Different Mothers. And we were in Seattle, and we were doing street performing at the time. So just, we would set up our shows on the street at various festivals and events and just perform and ask people to donate money. And someone saw us and invited us to their theater. In Seattle, there just happened to be a very small vaudeville theater where they were still doing like old variety shows with singers and dancers and an organ player. Mm-hmm. And the person who ran that at the time was an old famous street performer named Hokum W. Jeebs. And he invited us, and I think he offered us like $50 or something, and we were ecstatic that we were guaranteed money. And we put together a whole new sort of performance, a whole new set. And we went and did very well, and that's when we decided, hey, there's something here. We can make money really selling this to indoor spaces. And that was a big turning point for me because I was sort of in and out of Seattle at the time. And so that sort of solidified my decision to move to Seattle and commit to it full time. Just getting a $50 paycheck from a guy at a vaudeville theater.
Okay. All right. Then what's, the biggest show that you think that you've ever done?
I've done a lot. When I was on my hacky-sack tour, I did a demo. I did a hacky-sack demo at like a European soccer qualifying match between Turkey and Ireland.
Oh,
me and two people playing these little hacky sacks in the middle of a soccer field, and having Turkish fans throw quarters at us and boo us off the field. I've done America's Got Talent. I've done a variety of TV shows, corporate events, colleges. Every sort of available performing venue I've performed at. So there's none that really stick out in my mind of being more significant than the other.
I always like to ask these questions because who listens to a lot of my podcasts are a lot of budding artists and people who want to get into what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, totally. Great. I started doing school. We talked about the hacky sack. I did a tour around the United States where I was demonstrating non-competitive games at school programs, and I did that for 2 years. So that's a good way to get into it. There's school assemblies they always need presenters, and there's a plethora of schools. Every town has a school, and you can go and perform and demonstrate what you're doing, work on your show, see how it works, and get paid a little bit of money. I always say that's a nice sort of entry level way to get into the business. Another way is doing street shows. I did about a year's worth of street shows in Seattle, which is not a great street performing place. There's a lot of places in the United States that have set street performing venues like New Orleans or Key West or
Fisherman's
Chicago.
Wharf.
Exactly. Seattle does not have that. They have the Pike Place Market, and it's really set up for a guy with a guitar performing. And so, my partner and I at the time, we had to sort of figure out, we would go to shopping malls and any event that there was that would have, more than 1,000 people, and we would just drop our case down and shout at the top of our lungs jokes and try and convince people to watch. And that's always a good way to cut your teeth into this business. And it really sort of tests your resolve, because it can be humiliating at times. And I mean, when we first started doing street shows in Seattle, sometimes we'd be doing shows for 6 or 7 people, and we'd make $7, and we'd be excited that we did that well. And so small wins, you build off of that, and you try and learn from what the audience tells you. They say, hey, they don't clap for something. You say, okay, why didn't they clap for that? You sort of play with what you're doing and try and eventually put together a show that you can sell to larger venues that have actual paychecks.
Okay, Matt, but there's another side to this. The other side is that there are bad experiences, and I know that it's not all easy. So, what's some of the worst things? Did you ever think about quitting? What's some of the worst things that's happened to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a million times. I still go into I still do events where, you walk in, the show's going to be bad just by the way it's set up, or, sometimes, you go do a corporate event, and there's you're on the stage, and then there's a huge sort of cavernous dance floor, and then the audience is 200 feet away. Those shows are difficult, or they don't have a sound system. These are things that you trying to alleviate before you go into the venue, but sometimes as much as you say, hey, I need this, this, and this, and this for the show to be a success, sometimes the audiences or the venue just doesn't provide it. But yeah, I mean, I've been booed on stage. I've been heckled a million times. I've walked off stage and said, that was it, I'm done. I've had injuries on stage. I've had, done shows with
okay, wait a minute. Injuries. We haven't talked about the other part of this thing. You're a stuntman?
Yeah. I do weird. I just call it unusual skills. I like to say stunt because it's sort of a bigger umbrella. But yeah, it's very unusual skills where I usually put myself at risk for the audience entertainment.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, there's a trick I do where I have an apple in my mouth and I kick a giant fork off my foot, and it flies through the air and then spears the apple in the mouth. There was one time I was performing, and I used to be the finale of my show, and one time I missed it, and it just hit me right above my lip, and it just opened a big gash, and I was just, nonstop blood out of my face.
Oh.
And I think I don't know if at the first I think the audience thought it was a sort of part of the show, but I think they slowly realized as they saw the panic in my face that it was not part of the show. And so, stuff like that happens when you do dumb stuff like I do in the show. I think it's you try and alleviate those. You try and make sure that it's as safe as possible. But sometimes you mess up, and in this particular instance, I messed up pretty bad.
You've had some bad experiences. Where would you like to perform that you haven't had a chance to?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, as I'm getting older, I'm 42 now. Just had a new
You're
kid.
Ancient. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm getting older. I've been doing this since I was 17, so quite some time. I've been ramping up to do high. I do a lot of corporate events now, but I'm trying to ramp up to do higher end corporate events. My wife and I, we've been working on a little bit of public speaking. We're putting together a public speaking program, coupled with a workshop. So we're trying to get into that where we come in for maybe like a day at a company and we present and then teach sort of breakout meetings. We teach workshops on, what we talked about and get a little bit more in depth. So that's sort of like where I'm moving towards. I do a lot of writing for other people, where I write jokes and content and I punch up people's scripts. And so I like to move more into that medium where I'm just sort of writing for other people or writing scripts or punching up stuff for other comedians or variety acts. I think that's sort of where I'm moving to.
All right. Well, you've done stage shows at fairs and festivals, right? Yeah,
quite a bit.
How long does your show usually last?
Typically at a fair, I do my show time is usually 45 minutes. And then typically I'll do 10 minutes of crowd work before. So the set show is only 45 minutes, but I'm usually on stage for about 55 minutes total.
You have people that book you, right?
Yes, I have a fair agent, so I have agents for different markets. I have a college agent who represents me specifically in the college market. I have a cruise ship agent who represents me exclusively in the cruise ship market, and then I have a fair agent who represents me in the fair market. And so they go out to conventions. Everywhere has conventions. I'm sure you know that. Maybe your listeners might not. That usually every state or region has a convention, like the Oregon Fair Convention, the Texas Fair Convention, the New York Fair Association, and then they'll have a convention, and then they'll have booths where agents and acts can, set up and meet potential buyers, and acts can go and showcase usually at lunch or dinner where they perform their act in front of potential buyers who are the fairs themselves attending the convention. And these happen all over the United States. And so my agent usually goes to a fair amount of those and sets up a booth, and she has a few acts that she represents, and she tries to sell those acts to potential buyers.
Okay. All right. Well, let's do this. We've covered you pretty well. So if somebody's interested in booking you or getting in touch with you, how do they do that?
You can just go to my website, which is comedystuntshow.com. And you can send me a message, and depending on who is emailing me, I can point you to the right agent, or I can talk to you directly. And I got a bunch of stuff out there: YouTube, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. If you just Google Comedy Stunt Show, I'm the guy.
All right. Is there any place that you would really, really, really like to perform at, that you're aspiring to perform at, that you haven't had a chance to?
Well, being on your podcast was one of them. So
Hi, Matt.
I knocked that off the bucket list. No, I've done it all. NBA halftime shows. I've done large corporate events. I'm very content with where I am, and I just want to keep creating new material that entertains people and keep being positive and putting cool art out there for people to enjoy. And, yeah, that's what I'm about.
Okay. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you. It's been fun. Now go take care of that new little baby.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, it's funny. She was crying up to when you called, and now she's quiet. So maybe I should keep talking to you. That's a good luck charm. But thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Bye-bye, Matt.
Bye.